So this is a PragerU video called How to End White Privilege. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm pretty sure I know what they're going to say. They're probably going to say, stop talking about it. They're probably going to say that white privilege isn't a thing and that we should stop trying to make it a thing. But let's see how they put it. Is it going to be the old white guy again? I hope it's Dennis Prager. I hate his voice, but he's so easy to shit talk.
Woke white people.
Fuck. I don't know who this person is, so I can't just dunk on them. Okay.
I'd like to ask you a favor. Please stop asking for forgiveness for your white privilege. You're not fooling anybody.
Woke white people aren't asking for forgiveness for their white privilege. They're acknowledging that it exists and is trying to, and at least those of us who are activists, are trying to make things more equal for all people and make it so that white privilege really isn't a thing anymore, even though it probably always will be, at least until race is no longer a lens through which we look at life, which isn't going to be anytime soon. But nobody's asking for forgiveness for it, at least nobody that I know or have ever talked to.
You're not helping black people or any other minority. And your public confessions don't make you look virtuous. They make you look disingenuous, which is a really nice...
How does acknowledging your privilege and saying, my life is not made harder because of the color of my skin, make me look disingenuous? How does advocating for the rights and fair treatment of people of color make me look disingenuous? I don't think they're going to explain how, but I'd really like to know.
Nice way of saying fake, phony, and fraudulent. For starters, what is white privilege anyway?
Careful with those F words, man.
Because you're born with white skin, you have all these advantages that I don't have?
Yes. There are a bunch of different types of privilege, but one that white people have is the fact that our life is not made harder because of the color of my skin. If I'm driving down a road, he's a fucking cop. Of course he is. Oh my God. They had to get the former cop in on this video, and it's a black man who's a former cop, so you got to listen to him, right? So I guess for you being a former cop, you don't have to worry about getting a speeding ticket just because you were driving while black. But I don't have to worry about being pulled over for simply driving as a white person. Because you're a former cop, and they wouldn't necessarily recognize your car as, hey, that's Brandon's car from the parking lot. You could still be profiled. You would get off because you would just flash your ID that says that you're a law enforcement officer, and you wouldn't get the ticket, but you'd still be pulled over and potentially shot at if the cop has an itchy enough trigger finger.
Like what? Like you can get a mortgage loan that I can't get?
Historically, yes. And in some parts of this country, yes. Redlining is still a thing, even if it's illegal. It's the same thing as like the gender pay gap. It was made illegal to pay women less simply for being women in 1969, I believe. I believe that's when it was passed, but it still happens. It's nowhere near as bad as it used to be, but it's still a thing. Same with this. I'm more likely to get approved for a mortgage than a black person with my same economic standing and credit history, depending on where I am in the country. More progressive areas, probably not, but in the South, fuck yeah.
I got a loan. At a great rate, by the way.
That's because you're a law enforcement officer, so you're paid very well, and you have job security. That's a big leg up. I'm just saying.
And I got the house. Why would a banker not give a loan to someone who met the loan requirements?
Because they're racist? Why would anybody do something that doesn't make sense? Because of implicit biases, either implicit or explicit biases, in their personality. There are people that don't hire women because they are sexist against women. Even though a woman can do the job just the same as a man, they still have sexist tendencies. Bankers and loan institutions and credit union. I guess not credit unions because they're owned by the creditors that use it. But places where you go get a loan, the banker could be a fucking racist, and they would make a decision that's not in their best financial interests due to that racism. It's not logical, but people do it anyway.
He doesn't want to make money? I've never heard of such a banker. Or how about this? You can enter a store and not be looked upon with suspicion, but I, a black person, cannot?
Yeah, yes, okay. Holy shit. I used to work in retail, all right? I used to work in retail at a shoe store. And anytime a black man who was younger, or younger than like his 50s, would come into the store, my manager would have me, the only man that was working on that shift, and for a time working there at all, follow him. Anytime a black guy came into the store that was not a fucking geriatric patient, I would have to follow that person around and be like breathing down their fucking neck the entire time. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. That is back when I was a reactionary chud. It was slipping very quickly down the alt-right pipeline here on YouTube. Sargon and Steven Crowder and the like, that's where I was, so I didn't think it was odd. But looking back on it now, that was fucking racist. And it was every single fucking time they came in. Yes, I can go into a store and not be followed. You, being a black person, especially a black man, can't. In certain areas, sure, but in a lot of fucking places and with a lot of fucking people, you will be immediately viewed with suspicion. Simply because of the color of your skin. How are you denying this? I'm pretty confident now. I don't know for sure because I'm not you, but I'm pretty confident you have lived this experience and you're being paid to deny it. Are you fucking grifting or something? Jesus.
Except that has never happened to me.
Of course.
But if I was a young dude with my pants hanging down to my butt, I could understand why the store owner would be concerned.
Why? Why should the store owner be concerned because your pants are hanging down on your butt and you're young? If I walk into a store with my pants hanging down around my butt, they're not going to look at me anywhere near the same way. Because I'm white. It's called racism. It's a thing. I know you're being paid to deny it, but it's a thing. Is the rap music relevant here too? Is this some sort of dog whistle that rap music is indicative of a degenerate culture?
I used to be a cop. Believe me,
I know that's a thing that these people do.
If I owned a store, I'd be tracking that kid too, whether he
Why?
was black, white, or anything else.
Why? That's profiling. Cops are trained not to. They still do it anyway, but trained not to profile. At least not based on race or appearance. Maybe behavior. If the dude looks like he's trying to steal something, sure. But if he's just walking in the store with low-hanging pants, being young, that's not a reason to hold anybody in suspicion. That's not a reason to follow somebody around a store.
Or what if I had a store that had a history of being shoplifted by young black women? And a young black woman with a bad attitude walked in.
With a bad attitude. Oh my God. Your store has a history of being shoplifted by young black women. And a young black woman with a bad attitude walks in, you're going to immediately hold them in suspicion. Okay. Is this some sort of crime syndicate populated exclusively by young black women? Is there a reason for you to be suspicious of all young black women, or is it just racism? Or, I guess, ageism? I don't know. Probably racism, though. Why would you be suspicious of this person? Why would there be a trend of your store being shoplifted by exclusively young black women? Or is that just the only people that you've prosecuted and called the cops on and noticed because you're racist and watching them?
Would I be suspicious? Yeah, I would. Who wouldn't? I call that common sense, not bigotry. But there's another way of looking
I know you don't call it bigotry, but a lot of fucking people do.
at this. In many ways, in today's America, blacks have more privilege than whites.
What? What? In today's America, blacks have more privilege than whites. How?
It's been my experience that whites bent over backwards to give blacks every possible advantage.
Except for, the 200 years of slavery and then the 100 years of Jim Crow and then broken windows policing and stop and frisk and modern day redlining and involuntary segregation and economic segregation and economic disenfranchisement through generational poverty, things like that. But, you get to go to college now, I guess. So racism is over?
If two people are equally qualified for a job, the black person will usually get it.
No, actually, there was a study done. Let me see if I can find it. But there was a study done that had to do with black and white sounding names on resumes. Black sounding names resumes. Where is it? Are Emily and Greg more employable than Lakeisha and Jamal? This isn't what I'm looking for. The UCLA study. UCLA study suggests researchers look more closely at connections between names and race. Social scientists are studying inequality and bias might be signaling more than race when they select names for their studies. Okay. That's not what I'm looking for either. I can't find it, and I don't have a chat that can look shit up for me like Xander Hall and Vosh do. But there was a study done that included black sounding names and white sounding names like Emily and George and Lakeisha and Jamal put on resumes, and also white sounding last names like Smith and traditionally black last names like Washington and Freeman. And even when the people were not in the room, even though they were equally qualified and went to equal schools and had all the same credentials, white people were picked more in these blind studies, just based solely on their name. Yes, you're wrong, dude. This shit still happens. If you are black and there's a white guy competing for the same job as you, statistically, this guy's going to get picked over you even if you have the exact same credentials. Or possibly even if you're better qualified for the job. There have been studies on it. You're wrong.
Big companies and prestigious universities fall all over one another trying to sign up talented black people.
Talented black people, which means for them to find you as a person valuable, these large institutions, you need to be talented for these large institutions to find you valuable as a human being. As a person of color, specifically if you're black in this country and you don't have a special skill to offer these kinds of institutions, you're going to get passed over for a white person that's equally qualified. That's racism. It still happens. I don't know why you're trying to deny this. I mean, money, because PragerU is funded by billionaires, but still.
If you deny this, you are denying reality.
No, you're denying reality.
Which is what the person who dreamed up this whole thing did. A professor of women's studies at Wellesley College by the name of Peggy McIntosh. She wrote in an article in 1988 about all the white privilege she thought she had. She listed 46, including this one. I can choose bandages and flesh color and have them more or less match my skin.
I mean, yeah. I don't know if flesh-colored bandages not matching a black person's skin color impacts them economically, but yeah, that's a thing. I can go and get band-aids, and if they're flesh color, they're gonna match my pastiness. In fact, they might be a little bit darker because I'm fucking bleach white. But, you know, I'm Irish, so... But a black person can't do the same thing. I don't know if... I don't personally know because I haven't lived it because I'm white. I don't know if that will, like, significantly impact somebody's life, but that is a thing. Does it sound silly? Sure, but it doesn't make it less valid because it sounds silly.
Wow, that's some kind of privilege. Soon others took up the cause. Today, these so-called progressives dominate our colleges and universities, imposing this absurd notion of white privilege on their students.
Maybe because they're educated about the matter. Education does lead to more progressive values and more progressive mindsets. Colleges and academic institutions are where these concepts are discussed and expanded upon. Yeah. You're going to see it in colleges. Why is that surprising? It doesn't make it a lie just because it's happening in a college. I know that people at PragerU, even though they're not a real university, try to market themselves as a conservative-leaning university because they believe that all colleges are run by radical leftists and liberals. That's just what happens when you get educated. You move further left. Sorry.
That's too bad because it does nothing good for white students, and it does nothing good for black students. But of the two, ironically, the white students get the better of the deal. Let me explain.
Yeah, I'll let him explain.
To acknowledge your white privilege is supposed to make you feel bad.
No, it is not supposed to make you feel bad. Acknowledging your privilege as a white person is not supposed to make you feel bad. It's to inform you so that you can make decisions that can help make things more equal for other people in the future. You're not supposed to feel bad. I don't feel bad because I have white privilege, because I acknowledge that I have privilege because of the color of my skin. I used to think that. I used to think this way. I used to think that I can't admit that I have white privilege because then that means I'm a racist. That means I'm a bad person. That means I should feel bad. No, having white privilege does not make you racist. Denying it does, but having white privilege does not make you a bad person. It does not make you racist, and it doesn't mean you should feel bad about it. It means you should acknowledge it and work to improve yourself because of it, and improve the lives of others by weaponizing that privilege, like I am. I mean, I know I don't have a fucking audience at all, but I'm putting content out there trying to make advocate for a more equal society, and because I'm a white guy, people are going to listen to me, or are more likely to listen to me, especially racists. Racists are much more likely to listen to somebody of the race that they prefer, especially if they're a man.
It doesn't. It makes you feel good because by acknowledging your white privilege, you're declaring yourself to be enlightened. And as a virtue bonus, it also makes you a better person than those whites who don't acknowledge their privilege.
I mean, it does, but that's not why you should do it. That's not why I do it. I mean, you're here. Yes, you are, Dude Quixote. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't have, I'm not Vosh. I'm not sitting here with 10K, 12K viewers a stream, but I'm still putting shit out there trying to use my privilege to improve the lives of marginalized people. That's what you should do with your privilege instead of ignoring it, like this person's trying to encourage people to do.
White privilege, which is supposed to make you feel bad, ends up making you feel good. Meanwhile,
it's not supposed.
Wow, the real damage is to blacks. What?
How does acknowledging that I'm given privileges in this country and working to rectify that and make things more equal hurt black people?
What makes whites feel good makes blacks angry. More than 50 years after the civil rights movement.
If it's not inherently damaging and if it's not being used to hurt black people, it doesn't make, at least as far as I'm aware, doesn't make black people angry by trying to improve the lives of other people by using your privilege to do so. It won't make blacks angry. What are you talking about?
The message is you're still oppressed. How can this not create a victim mentality? And anyone
The message of the civil rights movement is not you're still oppressed and to feel like a victim. It's to make the people in power acknowledge that there's still oppression in this country, and that the people in power are the ones that can fucking fix it. If they would work towards fixing it, that oppression would go down and eventually would disappear. You didn't have these kinds of things in previous societies. An example that Bosch uses all the time, which I think is a great one, is Rome. In Rome, you were either a Roman citizen or a barbarian, and it didn't matter the color of your skin. There was a black emperor, even though the majority of people in the region were either a Caucasian or, I believe, Middle Eastern. I'm not 100%. I'm not big on Roman history. I just know like major talking points about it and what Vosh has said on his streams. But the color of your skin was not viewed the same way we do here in America. So things can change for the better, and we can move towards a society where race is not viewed through the same lens that it is today. Because race ultimately, as we view it today, is ultimately a social construct. And that's proven through history, through the Roman Empire. Because, like I said, the color of your skin was irrelevant. You were either a Roman citizen or a barbarian. That was it.
of any color who sees himself as a victim gets angry. Now, I wouldn't deny for a second that there are privileges in life.
So you're not denying privileges, you're just denying white privilege? Nice meme, I guess. I mean, you have to say that because otherwise you have to admit that racism is still a thing and you're working for a very far right-wing media outlet, but still.
They're all over the place. There's two-parent family privilege. That's huge.
Yeah.
There's being lucky to be born in America privilege.
Well, I mean, there is Europe, so I guess America's better than, say, Middle Eastern countries where gays are thrown off rooftops, but still.
There's good gene privilege.
Good gene privilege? I'm not sure if this is an acknowledgement that genes sometimes play a role in mental and physical disabilities, or if this is like a eugenics white supremacist argument. Because it's PragerU, I genuinely don't know.
But white privilege? Doesn't it depend on the person?
No. Yes, it does depend on the person. Are they white? Yes? Then there you go.
Let's take this for example. A black lawyer and his wife have a baby, and a meth addict, single white woman has a baby. Which kid has privilege?
Both of them. This privilege, this child has privilege because he's in a two-parent household and his father is a lawyer. So he's wealthy. He has wealth privilege and a two-parent household privilege. But he also faces oppression because of the color of his skin. This baby over here, while they may have white privilege, have a mother who's a meth addict and don't have a two-parent household, and meth addicts don't tend to be very well off financially. So this person would not have wealth privilege or the privilege of a two-parent household, but their life isn't going to be made harder because of the color of their skin. Whereas this kid, despite the fact that they have financial privilege and privilege within the family dynamic, will. Like you said, there's a bunch of different types of privileges. You don't just get one privilege card. I have male privilege because I'm a dude. I'm cis. I have white privilege because I'm white. But I also am a neurotypical. Mildly, but so that's a disadvantage that I'm at. I'm not straight, so that's technically a marginalized class, although I am in a heterosexual relationship. So that doesn't necessarily influence my life or affect my life. But I still have like two different types of privilege that I just listed here. I'm a white dude. You can have more than one privilege card, dude. You just mentioned a whole bunch of them. You don't just get one and that's the only one you get. And if you have it, you aren't oppressed.
The white one? Because he's white? Come on now.
Come on now.
And here's the kicker.
Come on.
Even if it were
No, you come on now. You just said that there was a bunch of different types, and now you're trying to ascribe one, and that's all you get.
true, all those claims about white privilege, so what? Would it change a single thing I did? If white people apologize for being white, is that supposed to help me? In what way?
No, it's not. Which is why woke white people don't apologize for being white. We acknowledge that we have a privilege because of the color of our skin and use it to help people who are marginalized, like black people such as yourself, with our privilege. Or at least that's what you should do. That's how acknowledging privilege helps you, or is supposed to. But apologizing for it doesn't, which is why we're not telling people to apologize.
So let's be real. White privilege is an attempt by the left to divide Americans by race.
No.
It's all theory and all nonsense.
No, it's not. You admitted that there was different types of privileges. Why can't white be one of them? Because it doesn't fit your narrative? That's probably it. Let's
If
just
you
finish
want to
this
fall
up.
for it, go ahead. It's a free country. But don't try to sell it to me. I'm an American who deal with my fellow Americans one-on-one. Try it. It works.
Is this that individualistic mentality that a lot of conservatives have, where a person's life is entirely dependent on the individual decisions that they make as a human being and has nothing to do with the society in which they live at all? I think that's the argument he's trying to make here. The problem is your individual decisions are directly influenced by the environment in which you find yourself and grow up in. You can decide that you want to start a business, but if you're a black person living in a marginalized community that is economically oppressed and generationally economically disenfranchised, you're gonna have a way fucking harder time doing that than I do as a white guy who grew up in a middle-class family. Your environment directly influences the personal choices that you can make as a person. You can choose that, you can decide that you want to start a business, but if you don't have the resources to do that, your decision is completely fucking useless. This is why this whole individualist line of thinking, individualist ideology doesn't work, and it's just trying to take responsibility away from the oppression that white people have put on people. Material conditions make a difference, exactly. By saying that a black guy that ends up falling into a life of crime because he was economically disenfranchised as a child and came from a single-parent household because his dad was locked up, the fact that he ended up in prison is completely his fault, and all he had to do was make a better decision for himself to not be in that situation at all, when he potentially and more than likely didn't have the resources to make a different decision, because crime is lucrative. Selling drugs is lucrative. And if that's the only avenue that you have or were taught is available to you and you don't know anything else, is it really their fault? Can you really hold them solely responsible for selling weed and ending up in prison because of it? If it's sell weed or starve to death and let your family starve to death because you either don't have the resources to access any other options or haven't been made aware of any other options, it's not really your fault. And that's kind of the situation we as a country for many, many, many years have shoved people of color, particularly black people, into, and then just kind of left them there. They were like, well, Civil Rights Act passed, racism is over. I hate these kind of people. I really, really do. Oh, Jesus Christ.